the plugin of the week is Vocal Rider. And so the Vocal Rider plugin is kind of a unique idea that was brought in by Waves. And so, from an historical perspective, if you wanted to understand a little bit about where vocal writing had come in terms of automation, the early days of automation were very simple. It was all done manually. And so people would do fader rides and mute switches and things like that, and sends and that sort of thing, just manually. And every time you did it, it would be a little bit different. And there was kind of a coolness about that. But as track sizes and production became more complicated, it became necessary for those rides to be automated, to be functionally automated, to make up for the variances in performances. And so, with all of the things that you can do with tape and compression and all that sort of stuff, you would still need to automate rides, bring levels up or down in different areas. And so, fader automation was created. At first, it was VCA automation, so it didn't actually see the fader move, but the actual rides occurred in an amplifier mechanism which was underneath the fader, and then you could program those voltage changes, register them in a computer, synchronized to a code, time code, and then it would play back those level changes. And SSL made an amazing automation system, the VCA automation system. It became very popular. And there were also a couple of other companies that came out. One, GML, George Massenburg Labs Automation, and Flying Faders, which you probably have heard of most famously. And what they did was they created really fast, or particularly the Flying Faders, created these kind of lightweight, very quick faders that you could write very quick rides on and write in automation. And so this plugin was designed to kind of emulate some of the things that people would do for vocals. And now, when you're placing a vocal in a track, sometimes for certain types of music and for certain types of track, we'd literally spend hours writing the vocals, making sure that every syllable or every part of every word is heard. And you would literally be writing and moving the fader sometimes 6, 10, 12 dB in either direction to kind of make all these things. And it sounds insane. And it is insane. But in the end, it has this really, really cool effect. But the way that they devised this, which is kind of cool, is probably never going to completely do all the work, but it'll probably get 80 to 90% of it done. And that was kind of the idea. And this is Vocal Rider. So the way that it works is that you feed in a vocal, right? You place it on the insert of a track. Usually it would put it, like the way that I would put it would be the last insert. You could put it at the very beginning prior to compression, set it for light settings, and it would actually ride and even out the performance before going into compression, which could work. But what I would do is take it, put it at the very end, the very last insert point, and then what you would do is you basically set it up. So what you have is a fader, and then you set boundaries, how far it will go up or how far it will go down. So you could set limitations. You could say, basically, I never want this to go any more than 6 dB down or 6 dB above from the center. And so you determine how quickly you want the fader to respond and how responsive you want it to be. So when you make this vocal sensitivity adjustment, it sort of determines how radically it's going to be doing rides. And you can automate all this stuff. And then you set a target, which is an area that you would set, which would determine...
The chances gotta be about 1,000,000 to 1.
So if I set it too low, it's going to always be dipping the level. Or if I set it too high, then it would always be making it high. So it's sort of like a form of active compression, right? And the idea is that...
Chances gotta be about 1,000,000 to 1.
Is that it would even out variances in the performance.
You pull me from the crowd on the streets of London.
Right, so here I can make it more active or less active
3
over
whole years since you found out the truth of my life.
And how fast it acts or slow it acts. So here, like if I need more general, slower movements, then I would go to the slow setting. If I would need faster, more accurate ones, I would go to the faster setting and make it more sensitive. Now, what's really cool about this is, in addition...
Chances gotta be about 1,000,000 to 1.
Right, so in this is like without it, so you could hear the difference.
The chances gotta be about 1,000,000
and then this is with it.
The chances gotta be about 1,000,000 to 1.
And it may be subtle, the difference, or you may not be able to hear it. This actually, this red line here determines where the fader jumps back to once it's done riding, and you could set it lower, but it's kind of cool. The other thing is that you can actually write this to its own automation track, so that once it's performed the calculations, then and you write it into automation, into a separate automation track, then you can read it back, and then it doesn't take up all the CPU power because it doesn't have to perform the calculations anymore. It just programs them as level changes, and then that automation just gets written to the fader, and everything else is more or less inactive, which is kind of cool. So you can set it up and get it to run that way and record it as automation, and then it just runs. The other thing that you can do is you can actually key in, feed the music into this, so we could take the stereo mix and feed this in, and then which is the instrumental minus vocals, and then it would use that as a guide. So if you had just a bus that was feeding into it, then this would allow you to set how sensitive the vocal is to the music input that's coming in, and this would allow you, for example, to make the vocal get louder as the music gets louder, that kind of thing. And how much louder does it get? Does it stay on top of the track? And this way, as the production builds, the vocal builds automatically along with it, which is very cool. So it's not ducking it's actually increasing in gain as the performance increases, and as the performance of the instrumental goes lower, then the vocal goes lower along with it. So it kind of follows as a guide. Very, very cool idea, concept, and I use this quite a lot. It's a really, really amazing tool for getting into detailed vocal writing work that normally would take hours. And even though you can write it in your computer, it's not the same. It's really not the same. It was very, very tedious, difficult process with the actual fader. But to create the automation so you can get the majority of that, and then you just kind of make adjustments where it's a little bit off, amazing. And very, very cool. So Vocal Writer is the plugin of the week. A very, very, very cool plugin, and one that's worth having in your arsenal.